This is an incredibly important time to stay calm and to not let these manufactured realities in this matrix change us from within. We need to be working on that process from within ourselves to execute that level of responsibility. If we're to evolve as souls in this type of a world, I sit and I watch the fighting back and forth between Antifa and the Trump support base. And I mean, the outrageous behavior on both sides just keeps increasing and increasing. And then you step back and you look at it, it's not really about the president. There are other issues going on within society that's driving that unrest. Same thing goes for this manufactured racial divide, which is in our heads. The perception of difference, the illusion of separation, it's strong right now. Incredibly strong. The various types of tribalism. And it's challenging for some of us to want to continue in this type of a world. And some people drop off. They off themselves. I monitor the situation in Portland. I've already talked about it being a place where people on the edge, especially during certain periods, go an extra mile or step over the edge. Some of them check out. Some people believe we can escape the pain of this world by doing such things. And I'm very skeptical of such claims. In fact, I suspect the archons want that type of reality. People to off themselves, and others in these years that we're in, I don't know all of Robert Stanley's ideas, but I was drawn to quite a bit of what he talks about, which is why I requested that he come on. His speculation, and he sees solar flares as maybe being an influence, but other waves of energy somehow dismantling at some point in our future the dark grid or the soul incarnation wheel. Now, we've heard over the years many false promises about humanity being freed from whatever type of enslavement is taking place. And so for a lot of us, we're really resistant to this kind of an idea of our world evolving instead of just continuing to digress into this. I mean, where is this going to go? Where is the bottom? Because it's frightening to some of us and it's threatening. And what it does for many, people question their faith or people say that God doesn't exist, when oftentimes we don't know how the Creator is really working in our lives and what God is here into this type of a world. But I don't believe this is the only lifetime. I don't believe this is the only world. I don't believe that the information that humans are expressing here, as well as their creativity, it is solely a result of their single lifetime. So what are we doing here? How do we evolve beyond this world? Does it require some sort of proactive measures on the part of the human beings to make the world or attempt to make the world a better place, regardless of the threats and the fears, perceived dangers? Social persecution. You're crazy. You're a witch. And see, we still live in a world, despite all the information, where there's a book that I picked up on the Sun recently, and it was discussing where a lot of, this persecution towards those that look towards the sun came from the Christian church and its establishment. And things were labeled pagan, and people associate paganism solely with Satanism and or devil worship, when that's not necessarily the case. So we have this guilty by association mentality. It's still going on today, even though people think they've evolved beyond those things. Racism, white supremacy in leftist towns still exists on a soft level. Trump, who I don't support, however, he becomes their boogeyman, right? All the racism in America has come from this guy and this alt-right instead of actually addressing the systemic issues that do exist within our society. And then there's the witnessing that some of us are having of various types of racism from various groups, and it becomes overwhelming and very troubling. As a result of this, I became convinced long ago we are a very finite expression of what we're capable of as spirits. This is not the only way. This is not a planet that is being run efficiently. We are not using the highest technology with our combustion engines, dependent on the corporations and the oil to go from point A to point B. They've rerouted the whole thing, by the way, to global warming when the sun affects temperatures, but we're being toxified, polluted our bodies from the breathing in of what is coming out of those vehicles. Why isn't that being addressed? And smog factors leading to health issues for people living in urban environments in a day and age where it's much harder than it's ever been before, economically, legally, and otherwise, to live off the grid. So I come to you now from Off the Grid in Between Ages. Never read Brzezinski's book In Between Ages, but we are in between ages. Very similar to what he talked about with the rise of the technocratic ruling establishment. If I speak about certain countries, just like that last video where I'm doing an update that I got a job dishwashing, I use the name of those countries that the U.S. may have a conflict with. And maybe even the word conflict is being flagged by the YouTube AI bots. But for those that don't know, YouTube has changed. Now, if you say certain words, a video will be demonetized. And then you can request an actual human person to review it. And you don't know who that human is or what their bias is. This is why I'm going to be expanding the on-demand channel. And I'm going to take my time and give a lot of care and thought to some of the things that I bring up. And a lot of those clips will be compiled together, and they're going to air on Portland Cable TV as of next month. I'm already airing now on Comcast Cable Channel 22 and 23. And soon there'll be programs running in Denver, Colorado. In between ages where this wasn't possible for me to do this 10 years ago. This is what, $300 computer? Was that about on eBay? 4 years ago, I pulled the Logitech 920 webcam out. Thought I would use that, save a little space. Okay. It was more expensive 10 years ago to do this kind of thing. Satellite internet may have been around then, but for the price, I got my bill down to $50 a month from the $90 by changing the plan to something that would work for me. Now, how much time do we have left is the question. We want to be in a psychological state of consciousness to where we are aware of potential threats, aware of things on the horizon, economic collapse, potential wars, YouTube channels going down, but also maintaining our confidence within. There's a lecture on magnetic fields by Manly B. Hall. Okay. Regardless of your thoughts on him, there are things discussed in that lecture with regards to maintaining a healthy magnetic field around the body. And that is done through proper health, proper rest, proper thoughts, but most importantly, moral action, where immoral action, in some cases, leads to a weakening of the human field. So our planet has a magnetic field around it that protects it from asteroids and the harmful radiation that is believed to come from the sun. Although the sun is what gives us life. It's a matter of it being in the right dose. You don't want to get boiled to where you're cooked. You want, maybe I'm looking at things from the creator's perspective, but a terraform reality to where the sun is providing energy, which transfers to us in the form of life, and we grow. We grow physically. The human female is a 9-month period before another human is created. And yet we see these parallels between the female cycle and aspects of the Mayan cycle. The Mayan cycle and what that represents was not something that was supposed to be about the end of the world, but a shift of ages. Would you not say that our ages are shifting real quickly? We look at, just to summarize, technology replacing regular human relationships and friendships. We look at what's happening in America with people not being able to afford places where they were born and being forced into this refugee existence, while this mind control is coming towards Americans all around the country to call immigrants refugees, which is something that Alex Jones has been using lately as we see society continue to regress into but ultimately the challenges that we face have the power to catapult our soul forward as we align with proper moral action as a response to what's going on. And realizing situations, sometimes when we're on the path, people may bear false witness against us, attack us. I've had these experiences. I've dealt with what feels like blowback for the good work that I've done. And I realize that the only solution or way to react to that, it's not like a faith, like a religion, because I'm not religious, but going deeper into the experience of going, okay, now I'm seeing the stuff's coming at me because of the stuff that I've produced. And even the people that have done some of those things or try to cause me some sort of a problem, I don't know if they are really fully aware of what it is or why it is that they feel the way that they do. But I realize there are certain ways you don't respond to certain attacks. And going back and forth and insulting and race baiting and feeding into it. It's one thing to be aware of threats in our own personal life and to the planet. It's another to let them distract us from our life's path. Our life's path. So let's go back to this theory that the energy on the planet is changing either through this next solar cycle, which I see the sun as a primary conduit, but perhaps other factors. We know that things like cosmic rays impact our Earth's magnetic field, which can trigger geomagnetic storms that may be, think about it for a moment, just like music has a certain frequency and certain programs. And I have a certain frequency when I speak to you, and another person on YouTube that you're going to watch after this before has his own energy and frequency. Think about the possibility that some of these solar flares have different energies or frequencies. And it's not all one-sided, the light or the dark. The positive spiritual entities out there. Oh, the negative spiritual entities out there. I see the sun as really a conduit, right, for all types of energies. In 2022, two stars are going to collide. There's a viewer who occasionally sends me some information in Australia, and I asked him to do me a full write-up, but he found my solar flare lecture, and I'm talking about the 2020s and a lot of stuff happening on the planet, and he on the, across the planet, across the pond, shared with me some of the things that he's seen, big-time astrological influences, very similar to that which we saw during 1776. But this is why they want to control the revolution. This is why they've created these fake movements, and we're seeing these people fight in the streets. And I'm watching the Robert West channel in Portland. I'm watching all of this behavior and people calling for cops to be put in the ground, killed. when those same protesters will go to the police when they are insulted, assaulted, robbed, or attacked by anyone or a Trump supporter. And will some cases engage in criminal behavior on their own, yet claiming that they have the moral high ground as they block traffic and insult all cops. This is another contamination of consciousness. There are good cops out there, despite those bad apples that will engage in illegal actions. One of the things that I've learned in my travels is cops are very different. And I was meant to experience that apart from Portland, but also look back at Portland and go, there is a certain amount of professionalism that some of those cops have that other police do not have. There's also some really rotten elements, but isn't humanity like that? See, unless we're a more close-knit, community-based society, there is going to be women that are going to be in search of government-sanctioned protection, right, from the monkey men of the world that would like to revert back to some old reality of this laptop battery, clunking someone over the head and dragging them into the cave. Unfortunately, we're still in that type of a reptilian world. Why is that? Special note to the women. We live in a world where these things like rape go on, where we're in this urban jungle, where people fixate on things like that and it's used as a weapon of war. Oh, this is an evolved reality. I don't dislike the earth or the earth spirit. I see it as captured at this time. So to criticize what's happening to her is not to criticize her, but to say that we have been saved by the Pleiadians and that the wave of enlightenment has already come. Back to the false predictions. That's not helping the situation. We haven't hit bottom yet as a society. So I talk about the quiet before the storm, the period that we're in before we go into these 2020s. And it would make sense to me. If a wave of energy is coming, it could also be something that the archons or others are going to try to manipulate human consciousness, amplify the internet-based programming, increase the level of fake news, get the Hispanics and whites and others, blacks, continue to manufacture conflicts between them. That's what they intend to do, when we should be healing those wounds. And we may not be able to reach everyone with this message that we got to go beyond the illusions of separation. But what's most important is that we should seek to do it from within. That's what we're responsible for. There's many paths one could take to evolving themselves as a soul. During this particular time, what we can obviously see are these archonic, also known as demonic, or other terms, supernatural, spiritual parasites or entities, that obviously are using race war theology and ideas of chosen people and inferior people to keep us fighting. And then the ancestors may have fought. That was then. This is 2017. We don't have to have the conflicts that the ancestors had. We don't have to be in a mindset of, well, your ancestors did this to my ancestors, therefore we have to be at war. That's Archon mindset. See, it's good to be connected with nature and our biology, but not to be controlled by the body. The spirit is higher consciousness, and that's beyond your genetics. So we have to stay away from this belief system. Oh, they're Mexican. They're this. Oh, that's an illegal. And see, there's so many layers to this. Oh, that's a black. White people are the devil. Oh, Middle Eastern. And then it goes on. I'm very troubled. I'm very troubled by what I've seen and what I've seen other people allow from their friends and the denial from those on the left and the right. So you have the Trump supporters denying they have white supremacism amongst them. And you have people on the left denying that they have also played into ethnocentric behavior. I moved out of Portland for a reason. Why would Willamette Week say in the top 25 reasons Portland's a great place, that's the whitest city in America? True story. There is left-wing white supremacy that is soft. It's not Nazism in the sense that you identify it to be. It's a different form of tribalism. And I've gone down that road, and I've discussed it at great length when I was in Portland. That's what led me to Colorado, to a different place. As I watched literally the things that I warned about and was laughed about happen, I'm not going to be in those major urban environments. But I am going to reach those in cities like Portland and Denver and in the future others. I'm going to reach this nation. And I'm not going to call them to arms to fight the government. I want people to be prepared spiritually. At the same time, I'm not claiming that we're going to be saved by a wave of energy in the next couple of years. I have basically given you the forecast. Is there hope beyond this stage conflict? If Leon, that guy that I interviewed that had the dream, if there's anything true about that, he felt that there would be some sort of divine intervention after a period in time. It makes sense to me that our nation could be humbled by, and then there's those buzzword possibilities, but hey, we all know what I'm getting at. And the defenses could be breached. And it's like something out of Lord of the Rings, combined in something out of a movie you've never seen before, with my warning of a human trafficking epidemic on the west coast of the United States and some of the elements that'll be involved in human transport during an economic collapse. This is terrifying, but I'm going to keep warning you. I'll tell you what, good things happen. I was going to say bad things happen to good people sometimes, but we can also see good things happen to bad people. Maybe not good things, but ways in which they're rewarded by the materialism of this world. So maybe what you've heard or have come to believe about karma isn't 100% legit, because sometimes things happen to us and others could assume that's your karma, and it could really be the universe really working through those archonic forces, pushing your soul or spirit to where you are forced to overcome the threat, the hardship, the imprisonment, the rape, the assault, the brutality, the emotional terrorism. Who knows what it is? And to come out the other side more powerful than you would have ever been had you had it all. Had you had the perfect husband, had you had the perfect wife, had you had the perfect this, had you had perfect that. But instead, we incarnate into a reality where we're being challenged, each and every one of us. You're being challenged on some level, even if your challenges are my challenges. And there's a lower self and there's a higher self within you. Lower self lies, cheats, steals, bears false witness against thy neighbor, race baits, promotes the military-industrial complex, gets into positions of authority to where they can take other people's freedom away. And there's others that are on another path, including police officers that are not on the path of being a cop to hurt others, but being a public servant. Folks, it's a fact of reality that women are not property. Like it or not. Okay. So women have the right to be single. But because they broke up the family unit, right? Women that are single in the cities without proper protection, now it's open season for a lot of criminal elements that are already in that. They're either going to off themselves or off someone else and take someone else with them. Thus, I've brought you stories over the years of what seems to be almost demon-possessed human beings. I've reported on dozens of stories where people have done things to each other, and mostly in these urban areas. And then I began to coin the term energy harvesting centers. There's something going on. I don't recognize this to be human. This type of cruelty that I'm reading about humans doing to other people. And people calling for all cops to be killed, and then some cops trying to hurt others or take away their freedom for sport without realizing how karmic consequences are realities spiritually for all of us. There are no exceptions. We may be divided, like, human being over here, civilian, citizen, and police officer. Well, police officers are civilians too. And even if someone's in the military, they're not now promoted to a godly status, despite all the Air Force propaganda and symbolism. The war hawks, the killing phoenix. And so, seeking to wrap up my thoughts here, we're being threatened in the physical sense by people that seem to be overtaken by these entities. And we are being faced with our own fears. And we have to go beyond the fear of death and be willing to stick it out as we look at the prospects for war and economic collapse and starvation, and maybe even issues like looters and other things. We have to make it over this hump through the 2020s into the 2030s. Going back to Robert, he was suggesting that there's a purpose to living beyond a certain point. I'm not subscribing to any rapture global enlightenment theories. But the idea of us having our own personal enlightenment, not a collective, but a personal, that's possible. And we can use these challenges to strengthen our magnetic field and to help others. And realizing that by helping others, we help ourselves. The universe provides to us what we put out, which is why it's very important to understand when you're feeling threatened and insulted and attacked, it is like the turn the cheek advice from Jesus and others. Sometimes we have to dunk. And a good martial artist can defend himself without causing major bodily harm to someone else. Which is why it's challenging to really go deep into that side of myself and my interests in a world where the peaceful aspect of it doesn't seem to be appreciated. I think back to my old teacher that I talked about, my Japanese teacher in Portland. It taught me some basic fundamental self-defense stuff. For someone of Oriental descent, Asian descent, to mock Tai Chi as a non-martial art showed me just because he was Asian didn't mean that he really understood spirit, soul, karma, energy, chi, the Tao, the wisdom. He mocked it. Do not, even when you want to put someone on a pedestal, engage in a stereotype. And don't ever shortchange yourself. Okay. Because you may be perfect just the way you are, just the size that you are. The weight, the height, the color of your skin, the way that you speak. The spirit inside your body. That's something to cherish. Some spirits in this universe would argue it's a gift to be human during this time, to have these abilities to progress forward. But I'm going to conclude by saying, I hear reports of men killing themselves. I was told that a former hater of mine is no longer on the planet. And he was someone that was a friend at one time in Portland, and then we had a falling out, and someone sent an ominous message without details that he was no longer on the planet. This was a dedicated hater. That type of hate eats a human up, which is why I will not watch YouTube channels if I don't like the speaker. It's a very toxic, energetic experience for me to watch people that I don't like. I want to like who I watch. This person, for whatever reason, if he did commit suicide or went out by suicide by cop or something, had been doing me obsession about prepping in I think a healthy, unhealthy way. And I remember making videos and discussing this, that taking care of our body, mind, and spirit is more important than future tripping on an apocalypse. We have to be present now. And I'm contemplating that deeply. A person that, like, the majority of what he spent his time on was the apocalyptic scenario and a lot of, competitive, tough guy talk. And he's no longer with us. And then we wonder, where do these souls go that leave the planet prematurely? So we're going to have to walk through some coals in the coming years. This channel exists to help those with the eyes to see and ears to hear. And I'll be back with more. Thank you for watching.